Good evening, guys, and welcome to Paranormal Footprints with the Rev Shawn Whittington. Nice to have you on with us tonight, Shawn.
It's a pleasure. And how's William Wallace and Robert the Bruce doing?
They're doing just fine, thank you very much.
Just how cold is it in Scotland today?
Freezing. We've got a weather warning for the wind. There's 100 mile per hour winds, apparently, tonight.
Did you guys hear the latest news? I heard on my way into my office here to do the show. The latest news is we are putting a travel ban on most African nations to go anywhere. And I wonder if that's going to happen for Scotland too. Did you hear anything about that?
No, I didn't hear anything, Shawn.
No. Yeah, I guess we have a new strain of the virus there. Rearing its ugly head there in South Africa, and it's supposed to be not very good. How are all of you doing there in Scotland with the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that craziness?
Busy.
Generally we're okay. Everybody's doing their stuff, but you can tell that there is quite a lot of pockets of outbreaks here, there, and everywhere, and everybody's just getting their booster jabs. So they've been double jabbed, and now they're getting their booster jabs. But there is quite a lot of isolated areas where there's outbreaks of COVID, but we're getting there. It's just a constant cycle, we think.
It's starting to wear a little bit thin, just a teeny bit thin.
And I've been working all the way through it, Shawn. So for the beginning to now, I've just been working all the way through it, and just enjoying that little bit of time off when I can. What about yourself, Shawn? How are you coping in America?
I was originally furloughed from my job for about 2.5 months. My wife's the office. My wife and I, during the day, we're both ministers, but during the day we work at a very busy animal hospital in Las Vegas. And she's the office manager there. She never stopped working, but we both got fully vaccinated a while ago. And I went back to work on a part-time basis after being originally furloughed. And God bless, we've been lucky, but we've lost some good friends. We've had some good friends that have gotten sick and they're now in heaven. And it's just been the last year and a half, almost 2 years, all we did was go to work, come home, stop at the gas station if we needed to get gas, stop at the market if we needed some groceries, and otherwise than that, we've been home. So
America was really bad.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
I was in New York. I was in New York when the pandemic hit.
Really?
And I just got home from New York. It was on I think it was the Friday night. Everything in New York City got shut down. Everything. Restaurants, Broadway, bars, you name it, was shut down. And the airport was stopping like any international flights. So, but we had to get home. So we were due home on the Saturday. We just made it. And then the full America went into the shutdown. It was crazy.
You're lucky. You're lucky you got home.
I've never seen a city go from being as jam-packed and busy as New York to dead. Nothing. Not a person on the streets.
Same here in Las Vegas. It was just, I've never seen anything like it. I've been here over 30 years and it was like a ghost town.
It's like an apocalypse, wasn't it? It's like,
it
wipe out.
Oh my gosh. But so I pray every day that I know that we're all going to come out of this and I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I see some bit of some bumps in the road still.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful, but you all look pretty today. And Johnny, you look very handsome. And
thank you.
I'm glad you're all healthy and doing good. And I wish I was actually there with you. I have fantasies and dreams of one day retiring to Scotland. My wife hates the cold, so I don't know if that's going to actually happen. But
Am I right to say, Shawn, that your wife's right? I could be wrong. Shoot me if I'm wrong, right? But am I right to say that your wife is a Satanist minister?
She is from the Lutheran faith.
Ooh.
I was a baptized Catholic. I was ordained through a Christian university. My wife is a Lutheran minister, and
Right.
she is
Am I in the wrong religion? Tell me if I'm wrong, Shawn.
One more time.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Is that the right way to describe it? What is Lutheran?
You would describe her as, yes. If you ask her what religion belief system do you have in place, she will tell you Lutheran, and
Lutheran.
and we get along just fine. She respects my religious belief system. I respect hers. We work very well together when we work paranormal cases, and she brings a lot to the table for me because she is very sensitive, intuitive to spirit, and she's a many-time over near-death experience survivor
Oh
and
wow!
a many-time over cancer survivor.
Wow.
So
Wow!
she's like, I refer to her as my human dowsing rods. I work a lot more cases now without her than I used to back in the past because she was the target of a very severe demonic attack after one
Oh,
of
I'm
our
so sorry.
cases, and it would just kind of scared me off of dragging her to every single case. But she is very stubborn,
Mm.
and she doesn't
She's
like
a
me
lady.
working case. She doesn't like me working cases by myself, so she insists on coming along if she's available. But it's always in the back of my mind,
Mm.
um, some of the things that have happened. But it is what it is. It's part of the. You guys have all experienced the same type of
Yeah.
stuff in the paranormal
Mhm.
field. It's unpredictable, and
Yeah.
as much fun and exciting as it is, it can be equally as scary and dangerous.
Terrifying.
So
Oh,
Yeah.
I definitely.
So how did it all start for you, Shawn? What made you turn to the paranormal side?
well, I think I was born into it. Actually, my father, he was on his deathbed from a severe illness that he contracted overseas while in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like probably just shortly after the Korean War, although he served in World War II also. But my mother, who's devoutly Catholic, she's Brazilian, was Brazilian. They're both in heaven now. May they rest in peace. But he was on his deathbed. There was no cure for what he had. My mother, being devoutly Catholic, went to the church before she went to see him. He was expected to not make it through the night. He was strapped down in his hospital bed, and she made a deal with God. My second oldest sister, her birth was very difficult on my mother, and my mother at that time was told by the doctor not to plan on having any more children because it would have been very dangerous for her. So she had no plans for that. But she went to the church, and I don't recommend this to everybody, but she made a deal with God that if he spared my father's life, that she would, from that day forward, whenever she went to church, she would do it on her hands and knees,
Wow.
and she would have another child. And my mother went to the church and went to the hospital, I should say. My father just woke up miraculously cured from the
Wow.
Oh wow!
disease,
Wow.
and she kept her bargain until she was too old and physically unable to do it. She
That's crazy.
did that when she went to church, and she
Wow.
had another child. Ta-da! Yours truly. But I was seeing spirit at a very young age, and my mother was the only person I could really confide into.
Mhm.
And she tried her best to explain to me what it was I was going through. And then, probably the age of 10, I had my first up close and personal encounter with a spirit, and helped that young lady pass over. And from there, it just snowballed. But I spent many years hiding my passion for investigating the paranormal and that I could see ghosts. Because, when you're a young kid, you worry about having friends and being accepted. And I really thought that if I came out of the closet, for lack of a better term, with those gifts and abilities, that the few friends that I had would think I was crazier than they already thought I was, and I wouldn't have any friends. I regret that now. I wish I had been more honest with more people about that earlier in life, but so it just snowballed. I just was a Ghostbuster for a lot of years. I didn't become ordained though till about 5 years ago. When I met my wife, we started a team, and she had the same passions for the paranormal as I did. But it wasn't until we had that first case, demonic case, where she became the target and was under attack, that I uh, reached out to the paranormal community and got introduced to my then mentor, who took me under her wing, and I took her course, and eventually got ordained and haven't looked back. And that
That's
seems to
amazing.
be, I look back now. My mother used to tell me when I was young that I was going to do something great for God one day, but she never elaborated on what that was. And I look back now and I think that I was created to do this, and that this is what she meant. And maybe she didn't know what she meant either, but had a feeling. So I believe that now I was created to be exactly on the path I'm on now, doing what I'm doing. And
Fantastic.
trust me, I'm just a regular person like you all. I have no special gifts, no magic powers. I have just been blessed that my faith allows me to be a vessel for the Holy Spirit when I go to work these cases. And it's the Holy Spirit and whoever else I can get who's not busy up there to come down and help me with these ugly situations that I find myself in time and time again. But
I
Has there
think also,
ever been a point? Sorry, has there ever been a point where you have been to perform an exorcism or something along those lines and not been able to, or have you always been able to help them pass over?
You would be surprised how many cases I'm not able to bring positive closure to. More than I care to admit to, but I'll admit to you that it's a lot, because it is a very hard field. If you don't, and I know what it is, and trust me, I don't judge anybody, but I've crunched the numbers and I've done the research, and more times than not, the people that I'm not able to help are not of the same religious belief system as myself, and they're not 110% ready to jump on board my bandwagon and buy into everything that I'm trying to tell them that they need to do to help themselves. People are the ones that have the true power to turn their situation around and help themselves. I'm just there basically to put my arm around them, help them stand up against the bully, tell them what they need to do, um, and many people, even though they're at rock bottom and they're over the edge of the abyss, hanging on emotionally and physically and spiritually by their fingernails, many people, even then, aren't willing to do whatever it is you're asking them to do to turn the situation around. And I find that's the biggest hurdle for me. But usually, if it's a person that is ready to just surrender and say whatever it is you need me to do, Rev, let's do it. That's usually when I have great success. But yes, it's many exorcism cases. I've gone back many times, weeks, months, sometimes, uh, doing a minor or sometimes major exorcism once, twice a week for weeks or months sometimes. But God bless, many times I have been in and out. One visit, go to battle, and have taken care of the situation. And those are the ones that I really cherish and hold on to and try to learn from. So I can take whatever I feel I've learned from that particular situation, I can take to the next one, and be prepared if, God forbid, I run into a brick wall, so to speak.
Is it not quite scary, like performing an exorcism?
My wife says I change when I go to these cases and I become something different. Many times I come out of these cases and I don't really realize or remember what happened. I just get in there and I feel that I do what I have to do. I worry more about if I take people with me, my team, um,
Yeah.
and my wife. I worry more about the people around me, but I try not to be scared. I try not to be angry. Any feeling that's not positive is usually used against you by the demonic. Let me give you an example. I remember a friend of mine who was an exorcist. He was attacked by the client that he was trying to perform the exorcism on, the rites. And after he was attacked, before the client was restrained, he got very upset and angry at the client for being attacked, for attacking him. Then he went on for hours and hours and hours and wondered why the exorcism wasn't having any effect on the client. And it dawned on him why. It was because he was holding on to that anger and he allowed himself to get angry. And it
It
wasn't
was
until
feeding off
he
him then, basically.
stopped the exorcism, went into the garage, and had another priest that was there present give him not baptism, but uh, give him confession, that he was able to come back in and resume the exorcism, and it then turned the whole situation around. But the demon used that anger against him. So I try not to have any of those emotions. I try to go to mass. Well, first I try to go to confession, mass, and communion before I go and take authority over an exorcism. And then when I'm there, I try not to hold on to any of those feelings that can be used against me. Am I always successful? No. But
it's fascinating. It really, really fascinates me, like exorcisms and like the demonology side, like that's like the demons and why they attach and things like that. That I find that quite interesting.
Do you find, Shawn, that this is just my opinion, but do you find, Shawn, that like movies and TV programs make your job even harder because of the way that they make it look?
Aye,
They
it's
make
quite
it look
theatrical,
like
isn't it?
like your paranormal activities, your whole, like, I watched something, it was called Bad Ben, and it was one of those that made it look like demons really bad. But I had a conversation with a demonologist on my other show, well, two demonologists, and as they say, you can get your good demons with your bad demons. But I feel that movies, TV, Shawn, really makes it look a lot bad, so people's got the worst opinion. If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm of the opinion, like I said, if you put 30 exorcists in a room, every one of them approaches the field a little different. Even if you have 10 of them are Catholic priests, they all use the rite of exorcism, but every priest has a different approach when they actually take authority of an exorcism.
Funny enough, there's one of the demonologists I spoke to last week, Louisa and Ben. Hi, Louisa.
Hello, Louisa and Ben.
Hi, Louisa.
But yeah, I do find, Shawn, that movies are a lot to blame for the opinions that people have of the paranormal. And I do believe that it has the effect when people watch like any programs, watch any shows, any films or whatever. I believe that they're in the opinion this is what happens in the paranormal, and then when they come out, Shawn, the hard reality comes when you're sitting there and you're not getting nothing, and they're like that.
That's right.
Why is there nothing happening? This is not what it's like in the shows or the films or whatever brings them out.
Do you find that when they do exorcisms in films, they've always got the crucifix in the face and the people start to melt and they turn and their eyes roll in their heads and it's like a pure theatrical. That doesn't happen on a well, I'm assuming that doesn't happen. You don't melt. You know what I mean? It's like that's what you see in the films. It's like they all start to melt and everything as well.
The films do take creative license big time. But I've been in some pretty frightening situations where some of the situations I've been into have been close to that. More so in terms of, we call them parlor tricks, moving items, levitating items, opening and slamming doors all at the same time while you're trying to concentrate and say prayers, and people lashing out and getting very violent. So I've seen some bad stuff. True, the movies do tend to go way overboard, even when it comes to the paranormal. And I'll give you two examples. I don't judge demonologists. I personally don't really go down that path. I choose not to encourage any dialogue with the demons when I'm there. I am also of the opinion that there are no good demons. They're all, to me, they're all bad. To me, they all want to kill me. I know they got a wanted poster of me hanging up in hell. So I'm very careful. That's my approach, and I don't do religious provocation, because when I show up at these locations, I already know that whatever's there, if it's truly demonic, is already provoked, and I don't want to poke the bear per se. So I don't do religious provocation. I don't poke the bear. I don't really study about the demons, because I don't want to listen to what they have to say anyhow, because I believe that everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. So my approach to that is that. Do I judge any other exorcists for how they approach it? No. And like I said, everybody has a different approach. Most of my clients that come to me, though, that have issues with the paranormal, believe it or not, and you guys, this will probably hit close to home to you guys, all these new upcoming ghost hunters that saw exactly what you said, saw on TV how to do it, didn't get any training really, went out, found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time, saying and doing the wrong thing, and then you have one or more members get an attachment and bring it home, and now they are struggling with that. Many people that reach out to me nowadays are actually ghost hunters, new to the field, and they're having paranormal issues because something followed them home from a case. So that's depressing. I wish there was more training. I wish a lot of these new up and coming ghost hunters knew better than to say, well, it's all going to be like we saw on the TV. Let's do that, and got some training. Exorcisms, I am also of the opinion that it's a calling. I do teach a course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, but many of my students that come to me go, am I going to learn how to do exorcisms? And I go, absolutely not. Have many of my students gone on to be wonderfully blessed exorcists? Yes. But that's just to me, I believe it's a calling, and you can't really train an exorcist. Even Catholic priests, many of them don't want to be exorcists. It's their bishops and their cardinals above them see something in them and then encourage them to take the courses, and then usually they blossom like a flower, and that becomes part of them, and because it was a calling.
I've got a question for Louisa. Wouldn't you class prayers as religious provocative?
Provocation.
Provocation, even.
Provocation, to me, I think of going in and confronting the demon like you're going to, have a boxing match with it. You're insulting it. You're daring it to manifest. You're daring it to move something. You're daring it to reach out and touch someone. Prove to us that you're here. That type of stuff. That's very, very dangerous. I usually get the children. If a location has animals and children there, 99.9% of the time, they become targets. So before I even go, I usually have the family send the children to live with for a few days with another loved one, or go and spend the afternoon at a neighbor's house that they're close with. Take the cats and the dogs and put them in a kennel for a day or two while I'm there working. Because that's very distractive too. You're already worried about your clients. You're worried about your teammates. Now you're also worried about the children and the animals coming under attack. So it can just be very dangerous. It doesn't matter. Any prayers that an exorcist finds works for them. And there's just so many out there. I'm also a big believer in keep it simple. Sometimes I go into an exorcism and the only prayers I say are the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the prayer to St. Michael, short version in English. Sometimes I don't even crack the book and go to the rites. And sometimes I just crack I have a blessed book of just Catholic prayers. And I've highlighted and marked many of them in there that have proven to be very powerful for me during that. But anything, just me showing up as provocation and any praying usually brings on bad activity.
Irvonne says, I don't think... Right, when you go, Mrs. I don't think...
On you go.
No, Princess, on you go.
Oh, here we're fighting. I don't think an exorcism should be done unless someone has been qualified and practiced, unless spirit is requesting to be helped over into the light. What do you think about that one?
I agree 100%. I am not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I talk to a psychiatrist and a psychologist myself personally, at least every month or two, to make sure I'm not crazy. The last thing you need is an exorcist who's crazy coming over to your house. So I not only do that for myself, but I am time and time again reminded by them and other exorcists in the field that you could be dealing with somebody that is suffering from a psychological, a mental disorder, a psychological disorder. Not to say that they still can't be demonically oppressed or have an attachment or be possessed. I have encountered many people that have been clinically diagnosed with a mental disorder and still be possessed. But for legality reasons, I can have the family sign over a consent form letting me come in and perform the rites on their family member. But if the client is currently under the care of a doctor and or on some medication and clinically diagnosed with a psychological disorder, legally I have to back out because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble trying to tread that water. It's very sad. I've gone into many a home that houses mentally disturbed people because somebody on the staff has said, I think you need to come here, bring some gifts for the old people, ask for a tour, come and pray with some people. But there's some people just between you and me that I need you to take a look at and tell me if you think there's something going on there more than mental disorder. And I have encountered that many times, but it's heartbreaking because there's nothing I can do on a legal basis. But if I get the consent from the family, I get the consent from the client, and there is no history in the family of mental disorder, nobody's been clinically diagnosed, nobody's under the care of a doctor, especially the client who's we believe is possessed, then I can proceed.
So this is Louisa again saying, if you don't talk to the entity when you go in, how do you know for sure that it's demonic and not just a very aggressive human spirit that's there?
That's a great question. I'll tell you how. And I touched base on it briefly at the beginning of the show that I believe I was created to do this. I have a very unusual gift of discernment that I can see and hear demons. Am I able to do that in every case? No. But when I approach a case, so people understand what I'm talking about, I refer to it as my spidey senses. I get a very unusual sense when I'm in the presence of the demonic. And usually I know, and I do have some key words, and it's just the way they respond to me. The most aggressive, malevolent acting, pissed off ghost or spirit has never lashed out at me the way the demonic does when I'm in the presence of the demonic. But I usually get a feeling, it's hard to describe. I just call it my discernment to know when I'm in the presence of the demonic. And when I'm in an exorcism, my discernment also taps into the Holy Spirit. There will be times where I'm right in the heat of battle and something will tell me, now ask it how it entered the girl or how it entered the boy. Now ask how many of them are there. Now ask when they plan to leave. Until I get those messages, I don't tread there. Because I've given myself over to the Holy Spirit at this point, and it's not me really doing anything. I'm just basically there being used as a vessel. And so I wait for the instructions on when to ask those questions, because it can be very dangerous asking those questions, asking what its name is. If it's not the right time and you're not being told it's the right time to ask those questions, it can be very dangerous.
So Gordon Jeffers has put a comment on, asking a question: are you a medium psychic or have any other qualifications to use to make decisions about cases?
I am a big fan, have always been, still am, and will always be a big fan of truly gifted psychic mediums. I don't understand what happened. There was a period in the paranormal research field where all of a sudden all these teams didn't want to have anything to do with psychic mediums. True, just like anything, just like bad priests, anything, bad witches that pervert their belief system and do perverted things with that belief system. It can happen. There's many psychic mediums that are shysters, that aren't true. I happen to know some very blessed, very gifted psychic mediums that I love to work with. So I like to use them when I can. I am very sensitive, intuitive. My wife even more so than me. So to me, it's just another tool, a very valuable tool to have in your arsenal when it comes to investigating the paranormal.
Definitely.
So I find a true gifted psychic medium to be very valuable to have on a team.
We find that as
Definitely.
well. We have
I mean,
in our
definitely.
team and Lois as well, picking up on different things. And without them, we've only got our own senses and our own equipment. So what they bring to the table is invaluable to us.
I mean, Shawn, do you as myself, like in paranormal investigations, what I like to do is I don't even like to research anything. I just like to go in with my senses. Do you do that when it comes down to exorcisms? I know, like in cases, I don't know if you guys look into, like, say, the history of the house or that first before doing.
I have what I call an intake form. First, the client usually reaches out to me, whether it be a text message, an email, a private message on Facebook, or an email to my website. So then I contact them. There's an initial phone interview, but then my wife and I send out what we refer to as an intake form. I require everybody in the family who's under that roof to sit down as a family unit and fill out the form together, because it takes about 2.5, sometimes 3 hours to fill out this form. And I'm here to tell you, about 75% of the people that reach out to me, I lose right there. As soon as I send out the intake form, I don't hear from them again, because they didn't want to work that hard for it. That tells you something. But the people that sit down, fill out the form, send it back to me, my wife and I, we review it. Then I usually call for a second interview, go over the intake form with the client. We usually know by the time we're done with that second in-person interview if we need to go there in person. Now, by this time, I have a good idea what we're up against. And as complicated as it may seem, I still like to keep it simple. It doesn't matter to me. There'll be a time where I will find out how the demon entered and why. And usually 99.9% of the time, somebody in the family has done something, said something to make this demon feel that it has been given permission to attach. And that's why it's there. Not always. Sometimes it's transgenerational curses through the family. But usually there's a reason why, and that reason will come out. But it's more important for me to get there and start helping the family fight back and get them in the fight back mode. Quit being frightened to death. Quit curling up like a ball in the corner of the room. Stand up, fight back, regain your faith, and come out with guns ablazing and fight back. And try. It's easier said than done. I'm only human. I get scared just like everybody else, and these people are usually frightened out of their wits because they know that whatever's there is there to kill them. That's the difference between a haunt and a demonic case, is life and death. These people are being targeted for extermination by a demonic entity. Ghosts, no matter how, even poltergeists, as much as active as they are, and no matter what they're doing, unless they're dishing out real physical harm, which is even rare in some of those poltergeist cases, ghosts usually just make a lot of noise, throw some things around. There's a lot of parlor tricks with poltergeists, but
that just means noisy ghost, doesn't it?
Yeah,
really?
the demonic,
noisy
they're
ghost.
out to really hurt. They're out to kill you, and that's the difference. And so it's important to me to get there, and all of that other stuff will come out. But to answer your question, if I come just to investigate a haunt, and I still do that occasionally, there is a little bit of investigations. But I do it. I'm a big fan of not knowing too much. I will call the county assessor, let's say, and find out if anybody's died in that home recently, any previous owners that maybe the current owner doesn't know about. I'll try and find out if there was anything on that property before they built that home I should know about, like an Indian reservation or any tragedy, any previous home that had a tragedy in it, and then they just destroyed the home, rebuilt. So I do a little investigating, but I try not to know too much.
We've got a question for Vaughn and Louisa. Vaughn says, Shawn, would you be prepared to perform an exorcism in an all denominations beliefs?
One more time.
Shawn, would you be prepared to perform an exorcism in all denominations, including without any beliefs?
Absolutely. If somebody calls me for help, I'm the kind of person, and to a fault, and that can also be a work against me sometimes. I take it to heart if I'm not able to help somebody, and those stay with me forever. I want to help so bad that usually even your most diehard atheist who's under attack by the demonic now realizes that they were wrong, that there is something that exists on the other side. And if there's true evil, if I can get them to admit that you believe that true evil has attached itself to you and is trying to kill you, then there has to be something of greater, higher vibrational love and light looking down that governs over all of that. And we need to figure out a way to tap into that, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this situation is to get help from that higher vibrational source of love and light, regardless of what you want to attach to it. I have one time or another have had, oh my gosh, so many people from a variety of different belief systems reach out to me for help. And it amazes me. And the first thing I always ask is, do you belong to a church? Yes. Have you asked for help at your church? Yes. What happened? Nobody there can help me. That's why I'm calling you. So I may do a little very little reading about that person's belief system, but they've reached out to me for help. So I go there. I don't try to convert anybody to Catholicism or Christianity. This person has reached out to me for help. So I go there and I try to do whatever I can to help them, regardless of what religious belief system or not is in place. And then just and work from there, But most people that come to me, even if they are a diehard atheist, they usually aren't after the ordeal, because they have they have seen, they've been touched by the dark side, and they realize, and in their deliverance, they witness this much higher vibrational power of love and light that is the result. Bringing that into their lives was the result in pushing that darkness aside. They have to surround themselves with that love and that light.
So how do you go about dealing with jinn?
Oh my gosh, you and I must be psychically connected right now, because as I was talking a second ago, I was thinking of a gentleman who reached out to me from India, not Native American Indian, but from India, whose wife has I don't want to use the word fetish, but she's addicted to lamps. And she bought this antique lamps, I should say. And she bought this antique lamp, and he called me up. I guess they were Buddhist. I want to say Buddhist, probably. And I've never met a mean Buddhist, I want to add. He said his wife had an attachment from a lamp. He said, a jinn, and I wasn't familiar with jinn. I've heard of them, not very familiar with them. He says, well, they're like the genie in the bottle. I believe this jinn came out of this lamp because she was cleaning it one night, and she changed almost overnight. And now the woman that I'm living with, that I met, fell in love with, and live with now that I'm married, is a different woman. I need you to come over and help. I believe there's many different forms of jinn, and I believe some are demons, just like the Dybbuk box. I have, on a couple of occasions, had Dybbuk box cases come across my desk here, and I usually reach out to Exorcist and the network that I belong to. What should my next move be? Because there are some pure evil entities that are older. Well, demons are older than man, but that are just so pure and so evil, they have no fear of God whatsoever. And they are hard to deal with. And if you're not able to bring your A game and at your very best when confronting those entities, you usually lose. And when I say lose, it leaves scars. So both times those Dybbuk box cases came across my table, I had superiors, people that I look to as my superiors that have been doing this a lot longer than me, advised me not to take the cases, and I've actually gracefully had to bow out. But that gin case was very interesting. I helped the gentleman as best I could. Things are getting better. In terms of, she seems to have a split personality. This Jin seems to have the ability to jump in and out of her at will. But when it jumps in her, it's not nearly as violent as it used to be. And she is going to her church much more often and back to practicing her faith much more than she was when this happened to her. And the husband, put the kibosh on the buying of the antiques for a while, because that can be very, very very dangerous too if you're not careful. I have so many people that have reached out to me that have purchased an antique somewhere, and things started happening in their home that they couldn't explain. I go there with my wife. We start poking and feeling around and doing our thing. We're able to nail it down to this item. And once the item was removed and bound and taken care of, things got better. So I would advise people, don't stop buying antiques if that's your passion, but be careful.
So Gordon's asking,
what percentage of hauntings are demonic?
One more time.
Go, Shelley.
So what percentage of hauntings are demonic? Gordon Jeffers is asking.
Thank God that the majority of people that reach out to me for help saying I have a demon in my house, the majority of them are wrong. It's just a ghost. They're just so And you can understand. They're just so freaked out because they've seen an apparition. They've had something pull their hair or pinch them or poke them. They've seen something move. They've heard some noises they've never heard before. That can be very upsetting. So I thank you, Jesus. More than not, it's usually just spirits in a home. Sometimes it's just a family member visiting the home, and that can still be very upsetting to the family. Seeing Uncle Pete or Aunt Betty or their mother or father, walking around the house still. But the people that come out that reach out to me for help usually is never the client. I never have anyone reach out to me and say, I'm possessed by a demon. 99% of the time when a person calls me and says, I'm possessed, they're not. Those people never admit to it. It's usually a family member that will call me and say, I believe, my son or my daughter or my wife or my husband or my roommate who's dabbling in the occult has an attachment that has taken him or her over. And that's usually accompanied by rappings on the walls, scratchings, knockings on the door, the doorbell ringing, nobody's there, seeing things levitate, not just move, but levitate a little bit, really bad odors. The person doing things that just so out of their character. It just couldn't be them because it's just so out of character for them to be behaving this way. And then their friend or family member has called me, but very rarely will a person who's possessed reach out and say, I'm possessed. They're usually the last one to know. And even when I usually show up, usually the demon hides. And I have some trigger phrases that I may whisper in a person's ear that I believe the demon's hiding in there that more times than not usually gets the demon to manifest. But you have to be careful. There's great responsibility that an exorcist takes on his shoulders when he goes to perform an exorcism, because now you have this person's well-being in your hand. Because once the unclean spirit manifests itself through that vessel, they usually do some terrible physical things to the person, and it's heartbreaking to see some of the things that happen to people when they are when the spirit has manifested through them and they're lashing out. So you have to be careful how you bring the demon out and how you you have people there to restrain them. Like if it's a woman, I usually have a couple of other women there to restrain. If it's a man, usually a couple of men to restrain. Many times during these demonic manifestations, there's defecation, urination, vomiting, and then they take breaks. And during these break moments, this person needs to be taken to a restroom and cleaned up. And you don't want men cleaning up a woman and a woman cleaning up a man. And so, but sometimes I've seen people get hurt very badly while you're witnessing this transformation and this entity manifest through the person. So you got to be very careful doing whatever you need to do to bring the demon out so that you can confront it. You have to be very careful because like I said, they're going to lash out mainly at the person that they've possessed, but they're also going to lash out at you, and they're going to lash out at other people in the room. So you have to make sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody is as close to a state of grace as possible. Usually there's a cameraman. Sometimes the family doesn't want it filmed. There's a couple of prayer warriors. You have a couple of assistants. One who's as good at deliverance as you are. So if you get taken out, and I mean that, taken out, sometimes it's usually in the form of becoming violently ill, not picked up and thrown out of the room like in the movies. But sometimes a exorcist becomes violently ill and he can't carry on. And it's not at a break time. It's right in the middle of a confrontation. You need somebody that can step in and take over. And everybody there is a target. So you need everybody there to assume the responsibility and be ready to take on that challenge when they're in that situation.
Definitely.
Louise is saying, reading texts that study back. Here we go. Sorry, my speech tonight's so early. Reading texts that study back from Sumerian times onwards, you can see how the beings that are called demons now were originally the old gods. What are your thoughts on this?
I know many people that believe that. I'm not a big fan of that theory. I like I said, I keep it simple. I was raised to believe they were fallen angels, and trust me, the things that I've seen my own guardian angel do. Imagine having to go up against a fallen angel who's as knowledgeable, as powerful as an angel, but now just pure evil. And their only sole purpose in life is to murder you, um, and murder the take the soul, murder and take the soul of the person they've possessed. So that they're just, to me, I look at them as fallen angels. There's only one God, and that is the Father of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that works for me. Like I said, you get 30 exorcists from 30 different religious belief systems in the room, and everybody has a different approach. But that approach for me works.
What's your most memorable case, Shawn?
You and I are psychically in tune here, because I've I get asked that a lot, and to be honest with you, there's some cases I don't talk about for obvious reasons. I live in a haunted house, and I get my fair share of what I refer to as demonic drive-bys here all the time. Even in my own home, I try not to talk about it too much and stir the pot. So I'll go with one that I've already put down on paper and put out there, and that's the exorcism that I perform at the end of my book. It is still being talked about in some exorcism circles.
Oh, you have a book?
Yeah, because of what happened. I don't know. Do I have a book here? A copy of it?
Where will people find your book, Shawn? Will they find it on Amazon and Kindle?
If you go to my website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz, you can purchase a copy. It'll come from my home here, autographed, enclosed in a house blessing kit.
Oh, lovely.
Or you can go to Amazon and get it a little less expensive, and it's called God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. But there's an exorcism at the end of the book that was a young girl who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, or a form of it, and she was wheelchair bound from a very young age. And now she's a teenager that I'm performing this exorcism on. And long story short, we determined the exorcism came from her father, who was a witch, promising his seed and his offspring over to Satan when he was climaxing in his wife at that moment. So we believe that the demon attached to her as an embryo, and so she came out of the womb already possessed, and it didn't manifest probably for a few years, but when it did, it turned her into like a hunchback that she couldn't even use her legs and hands. And I performed the exorcism while she was bound in this wheelchair, and some pretty amazing things happened. But the way the exorcism ended made many exorcists that I associate with in the network of exorcisms that I tap into for advice and for help, having second thoughts about what may now work that we thought didn't work before, to bring closure to these exorcisms. And and I'll leave it at that. But I will go with that. But there's been many that didn't make the book because my editor will tell you when she was editing my book, she calls it the scariest book she ever published. But I don't want people to get scared off of purchasing it. The beautiful thing about my book is that part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my book goes to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and the ASPCA.
Fantastic.
Those are beautiful things. But when she was editing that book, she had a lot of paranormal things happen in her home. So I always warn people. It's like a real estate people that will warn you if they're trying to sell you a haunted home. Not all of them do, but many do. I warn people, especially about the book. Let me see if I can have a picture here. There's a picture of an entity in the book here. Tell me if you can see it or not. It's the bottom picture.
I can vaguely see it, but it's my eyesight.
Is it to the right?
It's the only figure standing there at the bottom of the ladder next to the curtain.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also need this book.
Wow.
That entity, three-dimensional, solid like a human being, casts its own shadow. Before it appears, it has like a cloaking look to it, like a predator almost. But I didn't notice that entity when I first took the photo, and it was at a very secluded, out of the way, deserted location out in the middle of the desert. And docents there that were giving tours had claimed to see that entity all over. Well, I put the picture in the book, and I haven't had anybody reach out to me that have gotten the book from Amazon yet, but I've had several readers reach out to me that have gotten the book from me, from my supply that sits here in the home, that have told me shortly after receiving the book, they saw that spirit in their home.
Really?
Which blows my mind that something that powerful that may be here in the home, the residual of that can attach to some of the books. Nobody's been hurt or feel that it's demonic. We're not sure we don't know if it's a young girl or a young boy. My wife always sees me sitting here in my office like I am right now working, decides not to disturb me because I look busy, and then she'll walk into the bathroom or the master bedroom or somewhere only to run into the real me and go, wait a minute, I just saw you in the office. I go, no, this is me.
No, yeah.
Aye.
And that apparition of me is always, I'll just call it a doppelganger. I don't know what else to call it. That apparition is always followed by the apparition of that entity in the book that comes out of the office, walks down our hall, across our living room and out our back door. Even my dog sees it. And like I said, I don't get those heebie-jeebies, that spidey senses that it's malevolent, but it followed us home. It occasionally makes an appearance. It is followed by book to some of the buyers, the readers. It just blows my mind that something like that. There's so much. Like, I'm not an expert. I don't believe there are any experts. I don't believe anybody has all the answers. I surely don't have all the answers. So what we're dealing with there, I couldn't tell you. But I think that's what keeps me going. What keeps me so passionate about the field is the unknown. I don't believe we're ever going to be able to, there's so many, God bless them, there's so many paranormal investigators out there that are bound and determined to scientifically be able to prove the existence of the afterlife. The only people that really know it exists are people like you guys and me who have experienced it.
Yeah.
Otherwise than that, you can't explain to somebody, prove it to anybody, unless you're able to bring an entity here and interview them on the show or me on any of my shows. We're not going to be able to prove it scientifically, and that's okay with me. That's what I find why we all have such a you guys are in Scotland, I'm in the United States. We've never met in person, but we have this brotherhood and sisterhood amongst each other because we just know. There's something that we know that people that don't believe don't know. And that's why we're all so passionate about this field, because it's just so so unknown and so amazing.
Definitely.
And we'll all be having this talk when we all run into each other in heaven, and we'll have a good laugh over all the things we know then that we don't know now.
No.
And
That's
a
it.
round of Guinness on me when we all meet.
That's
well,
it.
we'll
We've got
definitely.
we've got a couple of questions before.
And a shot of
we wrap up.
Glenfiddich for everyone when we meet in that.
That's it. What Vonnie says, Shawn, what investigations and explorations did you have done for validation that a demon had possessed in that way? There are many children born, unfortunately, with that condition that cannot be said to be caused by a demonic.
Yes, and it's this was a rare case where, because of the history of the family having been involved in satanic worship and witchcraft for many generations leading up to the birth of this young girl, the father had already died a horrible death in a tragic accident before she was born. But there was the mother who reached out to me and said that I believe my daughter was promised to Satan when she was in my womb, and I believe that she's possessed. So she wasn't currently under the care of a physician for anything psychological, just for her health condition. So I got the consent from the mother to come over, and me and some of my colleagues that went there to the case. How we knew is hard for me to explain, but we just knew. And it wasn't long after we were there that the demon manifested itself through the girl, and it wasn't the girl anymore. It was something. It was an entity that was completely different than the girl that
That's
came
crazy,
forward
isn't
to confront us. So that's how we knew. And we went through all of the, the researching the background of the family and the types of belief system, religious belief system they were into, and the black arts and the black magic that they had been practicing for generations, and the intake form, things that were happening that the mother had filled out on her intake form, and throughout the many interviews that we did with her, we just came to that conclusion, and thank you, Jesus, we weren't wrong. But to add to that real quick, your guest who with the great question, it is sad. Many like many of the clinically diagnosed mentally disturbed people that I've confronted in hospitals that are there for that reason, I've been able to sense that they also have demonic attachments. And it's heartbreaking that you legally can't help them.
Just quickly, I'm going to combine Mr. and Mrs. question because these two are a couple and I both respect them as demonologists. So I'll make this question. This will be the last question, guys. So Mr. and Mrs. have put what Ben, first of all, from Ben's point of view, he wants to know what you use for cleansings, just out of curiosity. And Louisa says, why do people say witchcraft like it's a bad thing?
You know what? I'm going to answer the witchcraft question first. I touched base on this a little bit earlier in the show. People pervert it all. I have many, and anybody that's watched either one of my shows, my Friday podcast or my Monday radio show, knows that I have many friends who are witches. But just like a priest who's a pedophile, many witches pervert their belief system and they combine it with things like Satan worship, devil worship, the black arts, and they pervert it, and they do things with that religious belief system that they shouldn't do. But I don't believe witches are bad. Like I said, I have some close friends who are witches, and I believe they are, and they practice their for lack of a better term, their pagan belief system, which I don't judge and I don't have any opinion on one way or another. They practice that with love and light. So I didn't mean for that to come out thinking that all witchcraft is bad. Having said that, though, anything I can use at a location that will help me cleanse, I will. Preferably blessed incenses, frankincense and myrrh, Ethiopian, Three Kings. But then I go into things like a mixture of sweetgrass, blessed white sage, Palo Santo wood. I love that. As a matter of fact, I just got a shipment of this in. I don't know if you get that in Scotland. It is dragon's blood sage.
Yeah, my friend works with dragon blood, so she loves dragon blood.
Very powerful. It's all to raise the vibration. Sound. I use bells. I clap my hands a lot in the corners of rooms. Play gospel music on a CD player when I'm in there. Worship music. Sometimes I'll play a recording of a mass, a Catholic mass. But it's all raising the vibration, which the smoke can do. Sometimes I use. Oh, it's not in the room here. Some people don't like the smoke. They don't like incense or smudge. So I take smudge mist, which you can get at a lot of spiritual shops, and I will bless it and put holy water and blessed anointing oils into the sage mist, and it comes in a spray, and I will spray my smudge rather than something burning, because a lot of people are allergic to the smoke.
Yep.
But anything I can get my hands on to raise the vibration, I will do at a location to bless it and cleanse it. But raise the noise, just clapping of the hands and ringing of a bell, the noise, the vibration, raise that vibration. Prayer, faith, power of prayer and faith is so powerful.
But we're definitely going to have to get you back on, Shawn, because this could go on forever and ever and ever. It's very, very interesting.
We need to wrap it up. But thank you very much, Shawn, for coming on. And
God bless each and every one of you and all of your viewers today. Thank you so much. Anytime you want me back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shawn.
Thank you very much, Shawn.
Thank you.